And welcome back to Newsmax. I'm Miranda Kahn.
And I'm John Bachman. Thanks for staying with us. We continue our special coverage of that deadly train derailment in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And we want to go ahead and update you now with the latest information we have at this hour. Right now, the NTSB says it is still not sure exactly what caused that train to go off the tracks last night. They are launching what they call a wide-scale investigation. We know that they do have possession of the train's black boxes, and we just spoke with a former NTSB chairman, Debbie Hersman, saying that they are closely analyzing not only the black boxes that were on the train, but also the train signals and the train tracks in that area. That train carrying more than 200 passengers when it came off the tracks, again, just north of Philadelphia. We are learning that that train was on its way from Washington, D.C. to New York City. The NTSB also says it is going to leave no stone unturned in this investigation. Let's take a listen.
We're looking at the track, the train signals, the operation of the train, the mechanical condition of the train, human performance. We are setting up a multidisciplinary investigation.
As we mentioned, the train's black box has been recovered, and you hear what the NTSB is taking a close look at. And we are also hearing that there is an element of human decision-making here that could come into play. Philadelphia's mayor spoke just a little while ago, expressing his condolences for the 6 victims and those injured.
We will do everything we can to assist families who have loved ones on that particular train in whatever their circumstance and condition, but certainly with the 6 confirmed deceased, we are heartbroken at what has happened here.
Again, that's Philadelphia Mayor Michael Nutter. 6 people confirmed dead. One of the deceased, an unidentified Navy midshipman from the Naval Academy in Annapolis. His name so far has not been released as they are trying to get in touch with his or her family to identify them. We also heard, Miranda, that a staffer for the Associated Press was aboard the train and one of the deceased.
Still more to come. Deborah A.P. Hersman, she is a former board member of the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, and she's also the president and CEO of National Safety Council. She joined us last hour. Let's take a listen to what she had to say about this deadly crash.
So generally what you see is there are going to be speed restrictions. Track is going to be rated to a certain speed. On the Northeast Corridor, this is actually a high-speed corridor, but there will be sections where there will be lower speeds. Curves are one area where there might be a lower speed. And so when they're looking at speed as a factor, they will be looking at what's the optimal speed or what's the speed limit and how is the train operating. They typically have a number of groups of specialists, and so you've got specialists who are railroad engineers. They've got experience operating trains. They're going to be doing things like gathering up the records, the training records, conducting interviews with the crew. You've got track specialists. They know exactly what the track should look like, and they're trying to identify the point of derailment where that train left the tracks, and so what might have precipitated that. They're going to be looking at the condition of the rail bed, the tracks themselves to see if the rail might have been worn out or if there was anything going on there. And then you've got mechanical teams who are going to look at the cars, they're going to look at the wheel sets, they're going to look at bluing of the brake shoes. There's all sorts of forensic work that's going to go on really in these first 48 hours of the investigation. So certainly they'll be looking at the signals, they can test those signals. There's memory that allows them to take a look at what the signal positions were, what the lights were displaying. You've got dispatchers that are in a centralized location. They're not going to be right there by the tracks. They're going to be in a secure location where they're lining all of the switches and setting the tracks for which trains are going to be operating in which directions, where they're going to meet and pass. All of these things will be looked at. They're going to be interviewing an awful lot of people and collecting records in the very early hours.
All right, and now we're hearing, Miranda, a 7th confirmed death in this crash. Just got word from our producer, Marty Reuters, confirming that 7th death. Police in Philadelphia saying that as well. So now up to 7 people injured, hundreds, or 7 people dead, I should say, hundreds injured.
Nearly 240 passengers were on board, including 5 crew members. And survivors of that deadly crash are sharing how they're feeling today. User Beth Davitz tweeted this picture and says, and actually she was released from the hospital, and she says, no wallet, one shoe, but so grateful.
Got to be thankful for the little things. Tom Carper, the Democratic senator from Delaware, he was also on that train. He says, quote, "I'm grateful to be home, safe and sound in Wilmington. My heart goes out to everyone involved." Senator Carper actually got off that train before it crashed.
Of course, this is a popular Amtrak train, and news of the crash hit very close to home for a lot of people, including Stacy Sager, the local ABC reported, tweeted this, "Wow, this is the exact train I was on from Philly last night."
That train has been used by a lot of folks because that's such a highly traveled corridor for a lot of folks in our business and the media who are going back and forth between Washington. A lot of folks in politics who are going back and forth between Washington and New York. Philadelphia, of course, a major city.
They go back and forth all the time.
President Obama saying today, earlier, that he is deeply saddened by this tragedy, of course, talking about how for so many people, especially those commuters in the Northeast, Amtrak is a part of their lives. Vice President Biden saying the same thing. He's well known for his love of the high-speed train from his home state of Delaware to Washington, D.C. And we're already hearing this conversation play out, Miranda, where people are talking about allocating more money to Amtrak being underfunded, and the debate is taking out already. But you heard the concern there from the mayor of Philadelphia, focusing more on the victims at this time. And
it's still very early on.
Yeah.
Right now, we don't know what happened. They do have the black box, as you mentioned. We heard from that former member of the National Transportation Safety Board talk about this investigation. This is not something that we're going to actually know the cause right away.
Right.
It's going to take some time.
And as we got the rundown of everything they have to go through, so they got a lot. We'll continue to focus on this. The top of the hour, we still want to update some folks, some major stories going on. We can move on. Let's pick up with Dick Morris, blasting Hillary Clinton. This Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership being a big deal in the U.S. Senate. Dick Morris, we spoke to him about this issue. He says Hillary Clinton sooner or later is going to have to talk about that. Here's what he had to say.
She has a huge problem with this. As always, lying will solve it for her, but a huge problem, which is that she wrote the damn treaty.
Right.
I mean, she was in charge of the State Department while they were negotiating it.
Well, so Hillary Clinton has not done an interview in about 2 weeks or so.
Right.
And this issue, the crime prevention bill that her husband signed in 1994, that she was there while he signed, all these issues, the press has not forgot about them. Most of our attention, of course, is on the train crash, but...
Right, but what I think is interesting is I actually was listening to radio news this morning, and I was hearing another Republican saying, Hillary doesn't have to rely on traditional media to reach the voters. She can reach the voters directly, so she can decide what questions she wants to answer and which ones she doesn't want to, at least for the time being.
And that might be working with Democratic voters, but I think when you look at her poll numbers.
But this was a Republican strategist saying that.
Yeah, well, strategists say a lot of things.
Yeah, they do.
Sooner or later, though, it's more of that interview, and you can catch Dick Morris's interview on Newsmax.com, and more coming up here later on Newsmax TV. Do stay with us. Much more to come here today.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the very latest on those Marines that disappeared in Nepal, trying to help with humanitarian efforts, and of course the very latest on that derailment in Philadelphia.